Hello everybody, it's Trenton. I'm going to try my super quick explanation of congestive heart failure and how pulmonary edema and flash pulmonary edema occurs in the body, just so maybe you guys can ask more questions and understand what's going on. So this is a simplified picture of the heart. I want you to understand that left and right side always refers to the patients, so it's flipped around when we're looking at it, and that the heart's divided into 4 chambers. The upper chamber is the right atrium and left atrium. The bottom chambers are called the ventricles, the right ventricle, the left ventricle. The divided line shows that the heart's actually 2 pump systems that don't interact. So the right side accepts deoxygenated blood from the veins. So after the work is done with the blood, it's getting sent back through the veins to the right side of the heart. It enters into the right atrium, and then through a valve system that keeps it only traveling in one direction, it then travels into the right ventricle. And then through another valve, which I haven't drawn, I've simplified, it will then pump out and go and send that blood, which does not have oxygen in it, into the lungs. And we know then that in the lungs we pick up oxygen. I'll explain that here in the next picture. So oxygen has now been picked up in the lungs, and then that blood comes back to the heart a second time, and it's sent a very short distance from the lungs into the left atrium, so the left top chamber of the heart, goes through a valve there, and then into the left ventricle. And the left ventricle is the part of the heart that does the most work, and it is a thicker walled area because it has to then pump that blood all the way out to all parts of the body through your arteries to get oxygen now that it's carrying all the way out to all the cells. So there's higher pressures there. That's good. And then once it is in the body and then oxygen's dumped off and the blood then picks up carbon dioxide in exchange for the oxygen, then we're back up here and it sends it back into here, into the right upper chamber, right lower chamber, to the lungs, picks it up. We're back up here. And so it's 2 pump systems doing circles at the same time. And the question that you ask a class then is, which side is pumping more than the other? And it's a trick question because neither should be, because it's a closed circuit, right? So this is kind of a figure 8. And if one side is pumping more than the other, that means there's heart failure. And so what happens is, we're going to focus on left-sided heart failure because that's what causes pulmonary edema. If you have back pressure on the left side of the heart, think about this pump system as like a siphon hose, and you're pumping it, and it should be sucking blood in from the one way and pumping it out the other, but it shouldn't go back the opposite direction. So if we're siphoning, but now somehow that's a weakness and we have back pressure, now think about, we actually get a buildup of pressure here, and then we end up getting back pressure on these arrows, and the back pressure leads back into the lungs with left-sided heart failure. And that pressure then causes, where the oxygen exchange is occurring in the small capillaries in the lungs, you get not blood itself because the cells are too big to push across into the lungs where we get air, but you get fluid then that, because of those increases pressures, that shift into the lungs. Pulmonary refers to the lungs. Edema is just a word for swelling, and swelling is fluid. And so pulmonary edema is fluid in the lungs. Flash pulmonary edema is just pulmonary edema that comes on rapidly and generally is really bad. I'll draw a picture of the lungs next. I think that might make sense.